Okay, thank you for joining us today for our webinar on reporting your coursework and grades, which is the fourth, I believe, in our application workshop series this summer. My name is Stephanie Myers, and I'm the Director of Operations with the Coalition for College. The Q&A feature of Zoom is turned on, so you can submit questions throughout the presentation. We've got some folks busily behind the scenes, so if you come up with a question during the presentation or during the Q&A at any point, feel free to throw those questions into the Q&A. All right. Yep, there we go. All right, so for those of you not familiar yet with the Coalition for College, let me share a little bit about who we are. The Coalition is more than 150 colleges and universities with a proven commitment to access, affordability, and student success. And together we provide a set of tools called My Coalition to help students learn about, prepare for, and apply to college. We believe that coalition schools are smart college choices as they demonstrate their commitment by providing responsible financial aid and graduating students in a timely manner, including those who have been historically underrepresented in higher education. So these are a bunch of schools that are smart college choices for you, again, around those pillars of access, affordability, and student success. So on average, coalition schools outperform the national averages when it comes to retention and graduation rates, which are important factors to consider when thinking about the college you want to attend and how much time and money you will invest in your education. These are some of the reasons why coalition schools are smart college choices and make a great starting point when building and finalizing your college list. As you know, we provide an application that you can use to apply to coalition schools, but those aren't the only resources we offer. When you create an account, you'll begin receiving personalized messages to help you through your next steps in the college search and application process, as well as invitations to events like this one and other opportunities. If you'd like to get that helpful information outside your inbox, our Instagram account is a great resource for advice and news that we curate with help from admissions and financial aid officers at our member schools. Give us a follow. Also, if you have additional questions following this webinar, feel free to send us an email at info@coalitionforcollege.org. Next slide, Stacey, thank you. I feel like we're missing a slide there. Our partner, are the presenters? Hold on one second, folks. Just trying to get back to, there we go. It looks like it skipped one. We had to get back to it. Thank you for your patience. All right, so joining us today, we have a great group of admissions and counseling professionals who are going to share some of their knowledge and expertise with you about the college application process. Now I'll go ahead and let our presenters introduce themselves. And since we are talking about academic coursework today, please include your favorite course that you took in college. And we'll kick off with Tom.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tom Gudo. I'm the Assistant Vice Provost for Undergraduate Enrollment here at Loyola Marymount University, which is in Los Angeles, California. I've been here at the university about 16 years and happy to talk to you today about all things college, particularly the coursework and the courses that you're taking. My favorite course I took at LMU actually was my business law class, sophomore year. I loved it.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kenya Taylor. I am the Assistant Director of Regional Recruitment and Alumni Relations at the University of Maryland. I've been in admissions for about 12 years now. I'm very excited to be here. And my favorite class, well, at the time, it probably wasn't my favorite, but looking back, my favorite class in college was an advanced public speaking class. I used to have a fear of public speaking, and that class really helped me find my voice and to come out of my shell. And now I speak in front of the public every day for a career. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aubrey Weaver, and I serve as the Assistant Director of Freshman Admission at the University of Washington, located in Seattle, Washington. I'm excited to be here with you today to help you learn more about reporting your coursework and as you start navigating the college search process. Thinking back to my time in college, my favorite class was actually a Women in Sports course. I was a journalism major at my institution, and so it was a really neat just introspection of women in sports and how women in sports also influenced culture.
Hi, my name is Jenny Byers, and I'm Director of College Counseling at the Memphis University School in Memphis, Tennessee. And I'm starting my 20th year in college counseling and worked in college admissions prior to that. I'm grateful to the Coalition crew for letting us join you today to provide the counseling perspective. So many great choices in college to think about, and one of my favorites was developmental psychology, which I didn't know at the time I would use pretty much every day in terms of working on the high school side. But what I enjoyed was really looking at the cognitive and social development of a person, from conception through adolescence. Obviously now focusing on the adolescent side of that continuum. But again, it's such a joy to work with high school age students.
Good afternoon, everyone, and actually good morning to those of you on the West Coast. I'm Ari Worthman. I'm the Director of College Counseling at Lakeside School in Seattle, Washington, right down the road from where Aubrey is. Starting my 17th year in college counseling and worked at admissions before that. And my favorite class in college was actually a 20th century Russian history course. I'm a big and proud history dork, so it was really tough to choose between them, but that's the first one that came to mind.
All right, you'll notice quite a range there for our favorite college courses. Myself, I don't know if we would call it quote a course, but I had the opportunity to study abroad in Costa Rica and did some really immersive Spanish language courses while I was there. And so I would say that was my favorite college course, if we'll call it that. All right, so let's go ahead, and before we turn to the Q&A, we're going to take a look inside the My Coalition tools that will help guide you through entering your coursework. So adding schools to your college list is one of the first steps you'll take when you create a My Coalition account, and it serves a few important functions. First, you can search Coalition schools or any school to create a comprehensive list of all the schools you're interested in, and then share this list with a counselor or other mentor using that share list function in the upper right. This is helpful if you're looking for feedback about your schools or advice on additional schools to consider. Second, you'll have the opportunity to share your contact information with Coalition schools on your list, which is an easy way to get on their mailing list and make yourself known to these schools. Third, adding schools to your college list will also give you updated recommendations on which sections of your profile to prioritize based on the requirements for each school. So the college list helps you complete your applications efficiently. That includes the sections of the profile relating to your coursework and grades. There are 6 of them, but depending on the colleges on your list, you may not need to do all of them. So they may not be all together in the quote, recommended section like you see on the slide. There is a good chance you won't need to do all 6 of these sections. Excuse me, sorry. If you are getting ready to start your senior year of college, you will likely be required to do high school information, 12th grade coursework, and college information, no matter where you apply. On the other hand, only about 40 schools require 9th through 11th grade coursework. Also, because we have some students in the room who might have some students in the room, sorry, who have already graduated high school, we have included all of the coursework sections here. An important note, if you have taken classes for college credit while still in high school, like dual credit, you will list those courses under the grade that you were in when you took them. Don't put anything in the college coursework sections unless you took those classes after high school graduation. If you haven't taken any classes for college credit, don't worry. We're just doing our best to cover all the possible circumstances. High schools are very different across the country and internationally. Filling in your coursework is admittedly one of the most tedious parts of the whole application process. It doesn't require all the creative thinking of writing an essay, but you do have to pay attention to the details to make sure that you enter each course correctly. Don't be overwhelmed by the number of questions you have to answer about each class, or if there are choices that you don't know what they mean. As we said before, there are lots of different types of schools doing things in different ways. This part of my coalition has to be able to let every student accurately reflect what happens at their high school. If you don't know what one of the options in this section is, it probably just means it's not something that happens at your school. Reviewing your coursework to make sure you got all of the details right is an important step before submitting your application. In my coalition, you can generate a profile PDF to show you what the colleges will see when they look at your coursework. Press the Generate Profile PDF button and then go to your locker to review your coursework. You can also share that PDF with a mentor or a counselor and whoever else might be supporting you through the admissions process. Finally, in addition to this session, we have more advice about coursework and other topics in My Coalition Counselor. You can find these 2 articles about classes to take and your GPA by searching for coursework. We'll drop those links in the chat, and you can also check through My Coalition for many other resources. And with that, we're on to the Q&A, and I'll turn it back over to Stacy. You're muted right now, Stacy. I know you were just sharing your screen, so you're finding the right window in there.
Oh, sorry about that. I had way too many windows up. So anyway, thank you, Stephanie. I now have the opportunity to ask some questions that the students have been sending in prior to this session to our panelists. I'm excited about that. And also, please go ahead and share your questions in the Q&A because we're going to try to get to as many of those as we can today. So I'm going to start. The first question, I know many of you with us today are going to be seniors in high school. So how important is the senior year is a popular question, especially because like, well, I'm applying in September and October. I don't have the senior grades in yet. So how important is that? And Kenya, why don't we start with you?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Great question. Your senior year grades are just as important as 9 through 11. Just because you're admitted doesn't mean that you're out of the clear just yet within your grades. You know, we expect students to uphold and maintain, even improve the same academic standards that they had when they applied to the university. And as one of the requirements, we do require students to submit their final high school transcripts. So we will be looking at your senior year grades, and we will have to verify that you actually graduated from high school so that you still completed the graduation requirements, and also that you still and I know this question is going to come up a little bit later, but there are certain courses like 4 years of English, 4 years of math that you are required to complete in high school. And so we'll be checking to make sure that you have fulfilled those requirements as well. And then some schools, it's not uncommon for some universities to also request your mid-year grades. So it's important that you, maintain, those same academics that you had or improve them when you applied at the university.
Thank you. Next question. How many AP courses should I take? Should they be related to my area of study? And what if my school doesn't offer AP and the things I want to study in, or AP at all? And so Jenny, why don't I let you take that one?
Great, thank you, Stacy. And it's a great question. And I would say that it depends. And that means you're going to be looked at in context of the high school that you attend within that time period. And so some of you may attend multiple schools within your 4 years of high school. And so for each academic term, you're looked at in context of the school that you attend. So admission officers spend a lot of time trying to get to know high schools with visits, virtual and in person, as well as looking at high school profiles to get a sense of the school and what courses are offered, what's available to you in terms of school policy. Do you need to be recommended for an honors or an AP course or IB if you're on that track? And what that looks like. And then does your school have any policies about how many APs a student can take within a year? So what's typical within your school and what's appropriate for you, given your preparation to date, your interests, and, you know, again, setting you up for success in all of your coursework. I would say that colleges tend to say, challenge yourself within the curriculum available to you at your institution and do as well as you can. Oftentimes, thinking back to when I was in admissions and thinking about questions that I still hear from high school students today, they'll ask, should I get a B in an honors or AP course or an A in a regular class? And every admission officer I've ever heard answer it says you should get an A in the honors or AP course, which is, you know, not an option given by the person asking the question. So for students on the call, trust the advice of your teachers who are making those recommendations for you for that next year. They've been with you for a semester or for a year. They know how you've done in their course. They know the curriculum of the school. And so they're wanting to set you up for success in terms of helping you be challenged, but also, again, be successful in those courses. If you have access to a counselor or a college counselor, if you're working with a counselor and a CBO, definitely seek out some advice from that person as well and map out your 4 years if we have younger students on the call in terms of courses that you want to take. And then if there are particular colleges that are of interest to you, go ahead and connect with them and see what they recommend in terms of particular advanced courses that may be especially helpful in the review of your application. So in terms of possible areas of study, you know, for engineering, schools tend to want to see as high a level of physics and calculus as possible if your school offers those courses. And if not, then, you know, again, just strong STEM preparedness in whatever courses are available to you at your institution. So take advantage of the professionals that are either in your building or your virtual space these days, and know that college admission officers are here to help you.
Thank you. And so taking what Jenny said, Tom, I'm going to throw a question to you about coursework. And are there certain courses that are actually required for admission? So, you know, for example, Jenny was talking a little bit about engineering coursework. Does that mean that they don't have to take foreign language? Or where can a student find out if there is particular coursework that each college needs for admission, and any advice you would give?
Yeah, it's a good question. And an even better segue. I'm amazed at how well that transition worked out. Because, you know, it is a common question that we get on the admission side. You know, what are the courses that I have to complete to be considered a viable candidate for the particular program that I'm applying to? Let's assume that the college you're applying to requires you to apply to a particular program, because some colleges don't, right? And so I think understanding the college you're applying to and their application process is the first step in answering that question. Do they require me to apply to a certain program upon admission, or can I apply to the college or university and then apply for the program I want later on? At LMU, we actually require students to apply directly to a program. And so the courses that you choose at the high school level are going to be critical in understanding whether you're a good fit for that particular program. Generally speaking, we expect students to take a solid college prep curriculum. Playing off the previous question, we don't have a set number or minimum number of AP or honors classes that you're required to take. It would be helpful if you aligned those courses with the particular major that you're interested in studying. So to bring this full circle, Stacy, you know, if you are applying as an engineer or a science major, then we're going to expect that during your high school career, you're going to have completed courses that are going to lead to success in that particular program at the college level. So focusing on the sciences, physics in particular, we see a lot of high school students that skip physics that want to go into engineering, and we don't think that's a good idea. You should take the physics class. Even the regular physics class, we're not requiring the AP or the honors physics, but take physics. Also, you're going to focus on math. That shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that wants to go into the sciences, whether that's engineering or one of the other lab sciences like biology or health and human sciences. We also like a diversity of background too. And so many high schools do such a good job of providing that type of opportunity to the students throughout their career. So for example, English, taking 4 years of English, regardless of major, is important. At LMU, we do recommend taking foreign language, but if you are focusing more on the sciences or the arts, so maybe you're a theater arts major or a music major, then we could understand if you'd want to substitute in courses that aligned more with your chosen major. Math is important regardless of major. We would hope that you would take at least 3 years of math while you're in high school, even if you end up not going into a math heavy major in college. It's important foundational background and part of this education of the whole person that we all look for. We'd like you to take science, again, regardless of major, social sciences as well. And we also are aware of the academic electives that are available at your various high schools. I think it's great advice to speak with the colleges directly about their applicant pools, about the programs they're offering, because every school is going to be a little bit different. And I can't forget the high school counselors. The high school counselors do a phenomenal job of trying to align and help their students within the curriculum that's offered at that particular school. So I could go on. We could probably do a whole presentation on this, but I don't want to go on too long. But hopefully you get the sense that, you know, challenging yourself is important, being reasonable. We don't expect you to take all AP courses. There are a very small percentage of students in this world that do that. So I want to kind of bring the stress level down a little bit and let you know that we don't expect every student to complete all AP and honors classes throughout their 4 years in high school. That's not realistic. So pick and choose those ones that align again with the program that you're looking to study at the next level.
Thank you, Tom. So Aubrey, the next question that has come in a lot and certainly applies to students in your state for sure is dual enrollment. So should I take dual enrollment courses, and will this help me get in for admissions and also graduate early?
Thanks, Stacy, and you're right. That is a great question and one that we get often in the state of Washington. For those who may not be familiar, the state of Washington has a very robust program for dual enrollment called Running Start, and it is a program that we see a lot of students take advantage of. I think the question was asked, should I take dual enrollment? And really the answer is you should work with your high school counselor to decide which classes are best for you and which are the most appropriate for you. If you're able to take dual enrollment classes through a local community college, that's definitely a great option to get college coursework, earn college coursework while you're still in high school. But you want to make sure that you're still fulfilling those high school graduation requirements, that you're thinking about the overall rigor of your curriculum. Because when we talk about dual enrollment classes, there are a lot to choose from. And so at times it's tempting to take a lot of college electives and not take those core class requirements like English, science, history, and math classes, and you want to make sure that you're balancing that curriculum. So Running Start or dual enrollment is a wonderful option to get and earn college credit throughout high school, but really you want to make sure that you're working with your high school counselor to determine if that's an appropriate pathway for you. At the University of Washington, when we review admissions applications, we consider AP, IB, Running Start, dual enrollment classes as the same level of rigor. So really all those options are available to you dependent upon what is offered at your school. And just to kind of reiterate what Jenny said, we are considering what is available to you at your school. So if you do not have the option to take dual enrollment, you won't be penalized for that. You can't take courses that are not available to you. But if you do have dual enrollment coursework, you definitely can earn a lot of high school or college credit while you're in high school, and that can help you chip away at some of those graduation requirements prior to entering the university. And yes, that could lead to a shortened amount of time on your college or university campus, depending on how credit is awarded for those classes.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to throw the next question to you, but before I do, I just wanted to ask if you had anything to offer from a high school counselor perspective. Since, Aubrey did say work with your high school counselor, I'm curious for those students who maybe go to very large high schools that maybe don't have direct access to their high school counselors who are thinking about that, what advice would you throw out for them?
Sure. Yeah, just sort of echoing what Aubrey said, I'd say, if you can work with your counselor, great. But I realize, as Stacy is saying, there are many folks that attend high schools where the counseling staff is really tiny. It can be really hard to get in and actually speak with your counselor because perhaps they're overloaded. And I would say in the end, I know this sounds a little hokey, but do what interests you. If you feel for a variety of reasons that dual enrollment or in the state of Washington, Running Start is a good fit for you, then do that. If your high school AP classes or IB classes or whatever the most advanced classes at your high school are better fits for you, then do that. And it's possible there might be space in your application and the additional information if you want to elaborate on why you chose dual enrollment over AP. But as I think Aubrey was addressing, there's not a preference for one over the other. So when students sort of get in the mindset of like, well, how do I strategize or how do I game the system to increase my chances at UW or whatever institution I might be applying to, that's not part of that shouldn't be part of the strategy.
Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and have you start this one as well, Ari, but please, others, feel free to chime in. As you know, this will be yet another class that was impacted by COVID, applying this year for admissions pretty significantly, as about a year and a half of their grade will have been, maybe in person, but many of them may be hybrid or completely remote. So I'm curious, what's the best way for students to address the issues that impacted them during COVID? And like I said, Ari, I'll have you start, but would welcome feedback from any of our panelists.
Sure. I can't remember, Stacy, the exact wording of the question, but if I remember correctly, there is a question in the coalition application that gives students a space to address how COVID impacted them. And that is a perfect location if your grades or your courses suffered any way, shape, or form related to COVID to provide a paragraph or two explaining that. One thing to think about as you do that, you don't want to go on for pages and pages, but try to give some general details. But also when you're giving details, try to keep things in context too. So for example, if you went to a school and there were many high schools in the state of Washington that were fully remote all year long, if the reasons your grades dipped was because your school was remote, explain why remote learning didn't jive with your style of learning and why once your school and once when you reach college, when you're back in a classroom setting, you'll continue to thrive in the way you once did. What you don't want to do is explain to the college admission offices what remote learning is. We all lived through the pandemic, we all know. You don't want to explain, well, you really missed your friends. And therefore it was really hard. We all really missed our friends. So trying to explain specifically how these circumstances impacted you. We also realized that because of the pandemic for everyone, but especially for teenagers, there was an increase in mental health concerns. So if, for example, things like anxiety, there was a huge spike in students dealing with some of those issues during the pandemic. That's a great place to elaborate on that too. What I would not recommend, do not use your main essay to explain the impact on your grades or coursework. That is a space where you get to talk about yourself and share something that's important to you or a small slice of your personality with the college admission office. Using that space to explain a dip in grades or how your coursework suffered is a wasted opportunity. So use that question in the coalition application that's specific to COVID. Lastly, those of you that do go to schools where you have a relationship with your counselor, or if you work with a community-based organization where there is a counselor or a mentor who might be submitting a recommendation on your behalf, in addition to writing about how your grades dipped or suffered because of COVID in the coalition app, you can also discuss with that person, is that something they might also be addressing in their recommendation? That should be secondary, however, to your own explanation for two reasons. reasons. First of all, because college admission offices want to hear your voice explain how the pandemic impacted you and your grades. And secondly, not all colleges and universities, including Aubrey's institution, the University of Washington, will accept recommendations throughout the process. So relying on someone else to explain your circumstances is not a wise move, but that person can affirm and support what you're saying if you do have a person in your life or in your educational career who will be submitting such a recommendation.
Thank you. So I'm gonna, do any of the other have anything to add? You know, colleges, if you want to throw out review this year, how is it different? Any advice that you would have to add on to that?
I think Ari did a phenomenal job in summing up kind of our perspective. I mean, we as a entity are not going to hold students accountable for something that was not their fault and they had no control over. But I think what's really interesting and what sets students apart is how they respond to it. And that doesn't mean that they got good grades or that they excelled in this environment, but how did they process it? How are they able to explain what happened during this time period? And then to Ari's point, this is the critical piece. What is going to be different now going forward? And how is that going to make you a better college student? I think that's a good strategy even for your general essay. I think a lot of students forget to connect the dots in that particular moment. But if you can, just explain again in your own words what happened, how that's changed you, how that's going to make you a better college student. I think that is a phenomenal way to approach all of this, and know that there's human beings sitting over here on this side of the desk, and we live through the same experience, and we are going to take all of that into consideration as we go through and try to make some really difficult decisions about who we're able to admit and who we're not able to admit. But be yourself, be authentic, I think is also critical in that moment. And reach out if you have questions. I mean, I think all of us here want to be as helpful as possible, and reach out to us and ask how we recommend you answer those types of questions.
Thank you. You know, as we mentioned, we're having a series of these workshops, each on a different topic. And of course, today is about coursework. So one question is, from an admission standpoint, how important is the coursework? You know, the coursework versus the GPA. So when you're reviewing applications, how important is this academic record piece in your decision? And Kenya, if you want to start, and then I'll let others chime in.
Yeah, well, I can start. So all of it is very important. At the University of Maryland, we do a very holistic review. So we're going to be looking at your coursework, looking at the types of courses that you've taken. We talked a lot about like AP courses, any honors, IB. So we look at the rigor of your coursework. It was mentioned before, I think a good example was the engineering classes and people not taking physics. So, all of that also plays into your coursework as well. And then we look at your academic performance in those in your coursework. So the grades that you've obtained, the rigor, so it all plays, right? They all play a part with what we are looking at. So it's all very, I would say, just, equally important. And it's also mentioned before too, with having, those set requirements of how many years of English, math and science, social science and foreign language, and are like a fine arts class that you will have to be required to take as well. And so it's important that you, when you're selecting your coursework, that you are also making sure that you are, choosing classes that's going to meet those requirements as well.
So my next question is, so there's a student who maybe didn't do as well in their freshman year, maybe even their sophomore year, and then really thrived in their junior year. What advice do you have for them? I mean, I know should they wait and apply a little bit later so they have senior year grades to show? And I guess I'll start with you, Jenny. When you have a student like this that you're advising, what do you direct them to do?
Thank you, Stacy. It's a great question. And I think it depends on the school. There are definitely schools that look at a student's level of engagement with the school and their demonstrated interest as a way to try to predict the school's ability to yield the student. And so it would still probably benefit the student to apply early action, knowing that the school would likely either want to see grades from senior year as a progress report or first quarter grades, or the student may be deferred to see full first semester grades before the school is able to make a decision. But it's a way for the student to show that continued strong upward grade trend and engagement with the school and interest in the school. An upward grade trend is always better than a downward grade trend. So that's a good thing. And if a student was able to thrive during a pandemic, that's also a great thing. You know, it wasn't a time that was easy for most people. And so if a student really, showed resilience through that, then there could be a story there. You know, I think that an academic record tells a story. And so part of our job as a counselor is to be able to continue to provide context for that story. So both in terms of the course choices that a student has taken, and also students transition into a school like mine or like Ari's, you know, that could come into play in terms of preparedness prior to entering our school. Also family situations, especially this past year. Students were dealing with so much more outside of classes and outside of school, just as we all were. But having, additional responsibilities at home, potentially having family members living with them that wouldn't have previously lived with them. There's more challenges at play. So, again, I think it depends on the school, and it may make sense to wait until regular decision. But again, this is where, Tom and Aubrey and Kenya are incredible colleagues to have on the other side of the desk. And so for students to be able to have that conversation with their admission officer, or if they have a counselor they work with in their school or in their community-based organization, to be able for that conversation to happen, professional to professional in terms of what institutional priorities are, if that student would be attractive to the institution in terms of the student's background. And, again, we're all trying to set students up for success, and colleges are trying to offer admission to students who are going to be successful at their institution. And so typically, prior performance is the best indicator of future success. And so if a student is excelling in higher level coursework and more challenging coursework junior and senior year, that's a good sign that they're going to be more successful and continue that upward trend in college. And Ari, would you add anything from the counselor perspective?
No, I think you totally covered it, Jenny.
Thank you. So Aubrey, I'm going to go back to you. And I think, we started this conversation, we started talking about AP and IB and dual enrollment and weighted GPA and non-weighted GPA. So I thought, can you just take a step back for us, for students who might be joining us that are younger viewers or might be at schools that don't offer those things, and just take a minute and explain what are each of those things? Is the priority? What should they be doing? So if you just can do that for us, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Let's start with GPA, and then we'll move into some of those programs like AP and IB. So each university is really going to look at your GPA a little bit differently. Some institutions will consider what we call the cumulative unweighted GPA. That's what we consider at the University of Washington. When you hear the word cumulative, think all. So that will be from freshman year all the way through your junior year. So it's all of those grades that you have earned freshman through junior year. You will likely be applying before you have grades your senior year. Some institutions will ask for mid-year grade reports, as you've heard. When we talk about unweighted, we mean on the 4.0 scale. So that's where courses that are A's are awarded 4 points, B's are awarded 3 points, C's 2 points, etc. So when universities are calculating your GPA, they assign a specific point to each letter grade, and then they tally up that GPA. So your cumulative unweighted GPA is all of your grades from freshman through junior year on a 4.0 scale. There's also a weighted scale. Some high schools will use a weighted scale and they will give more weight to classes that are considered more rigorous, things like honors potentially, AP, which is advanced placement, or IB, which is baccalaureate. And so those classes are classes that they will give more weight because they typically are more challenging. And so that scale is typically a 5-point scale. However, that can vary based on your high school. Some schools have different weighted scales. So on your transcript, you should be able to see which scale your high school is using. And then that's a great question to ask each college or university that you're applying to. How will you consider my GPA? What scale are you considering? So at the University of Washington, we use the, again, 4.0 cumulative unweighted scale. But during our review of applications, we consider the rigor of that curriculum. So that's where things like AP and IB courses come into play. And again, AP and IB classes, it depends which may be offered at your school, but those courses are additional coursework and they're programs where you can take the course, and then at the end of the school year, there's typically an exam that you can take to earn an exam score. And a lot of colleges and universities will award credit based on your AP or IB exam score. And so your school may not offer both AP and IB. Your school may not offer either AP or IB, and that is totally fine because you can't help what your school offers. And one thing that I do always encourage students, and I know we kind of touched on this earlier, if your high school does not offer courses like AP or IB, you don't have the opportunity to take dual enrollment classes, we would welcome you to tell us that within your application as well. So that way, again, we have the full context of what is offered at your school and how you are taking advantage of the different programming and the different courses available at your school specifically.
Stacy, can I add something?
Of course.
Just to sort of add on to what Aubrey was saying, coming from the state of Washington, where a lot of high schools, including mine, we also calculate an unweighted GPA. Our students and families can sometimes get really panicked. Well, what's going to happen when they apply to the University of California system or to another institution that looks specifically at a weighted GPA? Aren't our students' GPAs going to pale in comparison? Because on an unweighted scale, the scale is typically a little lower. The highest you can get is a 4.0. And on a weighted scale, if you're getting extra points, as Aubrey was explaining, for APs or IBs, you can have 5.0s and exceed a 5.0 sometimes. And so how is that going to be weighed in comparison? And this goes back to what Kenya was talking about. The GPA is a quick snapshot of your performance, but it's not really the emphasis of the application. That coursework you enter and those grades you enter, that's really what they're paying attention to. And they can adjust, the colleges can adjust the GPA to their scale, but it's that coursework and the grades that's much more important than any GPA. The way we describe it at our school sometimes is, if you think about Instagram, when you post a photo on Instagram, if you post the raw photo and you don't use any filters or anything, like, there's the photo, and that's your unweighted GPA, you know, that they're seeing your coursework and your grades. Now, if you take that photo and you apply some filters, maybe you're wearing some really nice bright clothes and you really want those bright clothes to stand out. So you take a filter that's really going to make those bright clothes stand out. You've emphasized those clothes more. That's as if you had a weighted GPA. By placing additional weight on something, you're making it just stand out slightly more, but in the end, it's still the same photo. And that's the same thing with your GPA and your courses and grades. Those courses and grades, regardless of what system of GPA your high school uses, they are what they are, and that's the most important piece over any GPA. So don't get too hung up on exactly what is your GPA, and focus a lot more on what are the accuracy of the grades and courses you're putting into the application.
Thank you, Ari. And I loved the Instagram example. That was great. Thank you. The other thing I just want to take a step back on, and Tom, maybe you can take this one, is we also threw out some terms around, should I apply early action versus regular decision because I want my student year grades? So can you just give the quick, what's early decision, early action, regular decision?
Yeah. So the way that I like to phrase this for families is that decision, ED, means definitely. I'm definitely coming if I'm admitted. And that's an earlier deadline. Early action is non-binding, or you don't have to enroll at the university if you're accepted. You have the full length of the application cycle until the national commitment deadline of May 1 to decide whether you want to come to that particular university. But that's also an earlier deadline. So that allows students who are very interested in a school or just anxious about their decision to have a decision slightly earlier than those that apply regular decision. And regular decision is by definition a later application deadline. It means that you're going to get your admission decision later, but it also means that you have a little more time to submit additional coursework. And so every student is going to be different. There's not a one size fits all college application and admission process. It's really important that you know yourself, you know the schools that you want to apply to, you know kind of their standards, and that you work within those standards to the best of your ability. And so you might apply early decision to one school and regular decision to another, or you might apply early action to all the schools that have that particular choice. It really is dependent on you, what you want to study, right? At all these schools, you're going to have different programs that may be more or less competitive depending on the school, the location, the ranking, all those other things that go into it. And so it's really important that you do your homework and understand kind of where you fall in with these pools at these various institutions based on the program that you want to study, to then therefore make the best decision for you on which application deadline you're gonna pursue. I hope I answered that okay.
You did. Thank you very
Add
much.
something?
Sure, please.
One thing to note, students, and Tom, that was great. The only thing I would add is that for some schools, you have automatic scholarship consideration if you apply early action. So again, knowing that finances are a factor for all students and families at some level, I would strongly encourage you to consider early action, or at least to see if that is a priority deadline for an honors program or for merit scholarship consideration if a school offers early action. And again, echoing everything Tom said, you can factor that into your decision of what makes sense, for you and your application plan. But especially for some of the younger students, just to be aware that sometimes those priority deadlines are also linked to an early action application deadline. So just to be aware of that.
Thank you, Jenny. That's a great piece of advice. And since you mentioned scholarship, I'm going to take a minute, and I believe we just dropped a link in the chat. So right now, students, if you go on and start your Coalition account before the end of this month, so before July 30th, you'll automatically be entered in a drawing for one of 5 $1,000 scholarships. So it's the easiest scholarship you will ever apply to because you're just getting started on your college application. So I did want to mention that. So if you don't have your My Coalition account, please make sure you do that before July 30th. And so in the last couple minutes we have left, I just would like each of you to give what's your piece of advice right now for students thinking about applying for admission. What should they think about in going into their senior year? And Kenya, why don't we go ahead and start with you?
Yes. So right now, I'll definitely say start doing your research, which was mentioned a little bit earlier. Making your checking out the schools that have academic majors that you're interested in, paying close attention to deadline dates, learning the difference of what early action looks like at one school, what ED looks like, what regular decision means. Start to look out there for like national websites for different scholarships. And you can do this from home, do like the virtual tours until you're ready, or the schools are offering in-person sessions, but really start to do your research, learn about the universities. And, I'm going to leave some things for the other people to add on here too. So I would stick to start doing your research now.
Jenny, do you want to add?
Sure. Thank you, Stacy. Well, related to the topic of this session, I think it's a practical piece of advice is have a hard copy of your transcript there next to you when you start completing this section. That way, then you're not having to remember which courses you took, what your grade was. You can literally just go line item by line item and report your courses and grades. And so that just makes it easier on you. And then I think in terms of sort of personal or practical advice, students, make sure that you take time for yourself. Self-care is important in this process. And so if you can, take a deep breath and think about who you are and what you want, then you are able to be in control of the things that are in your control, and focus on that rather than the things outside of your control, because that's exhausting to think about everything that's outside of your control. So, think about the decisions that you're able to make and focus on those and just have fun. It's an incredible process. And being able to go to college is really a privilege. And so think about it more from a gratitude perspective, and hopefully you'll enjoy the process.
And if I can just jump in, Jenny's advice, I would say, about having your transcript in front of you, especially when you're completing the coursework, is key. But just as a piece of advice, and one of the things we run into at my school, maybe it's possible for whatever reason you can't get a hold of your transcript, but B, transcripts can sometimes abbreviate the names of courses. Instead of AP American Government and Politics, it just might say AP AmeriGov. Or instead of AP English Language and Compositions, it might just say AP English Lang. And one of the things I find can really stress students a lot in a well-intentioned way is because you want to be honest about the courses you're taking, and you want your courses, to match what's on the transcript when the college ultimately gets it. But sometimes students can get really stressed. Well, if I write American Government and Politics because that's because that's the full name of the course, but the transcript says AP American Gov, is the University of Washington ultimately going to rescind my decision because the transcript didn't exactly match what it said in my application? And I think this is what this is really about conveying to colleges. What have you learned, and what courses have you taken, and what are some of the skills and mindsets that you've built? The exact 100% detailed name of the course, if it slightly varies, Aubrey and all the folks on here will know that AP American Government versus AP American Government and Politics versus AP AmeriGov, you're essentially learning a lot about U.S. government and politics, regardless of how you've categorized or named that course. So as long as what you're listing is making it clear what you're learning, the way I describe it is, many of us who are listening and many of us on here might have middle names. My middle name is Bernard. I usually introduce myself as Ari Worthman, not as Ari Bernard Worthman. Sometimes I introduce myself as Ari Bernard Worthman. It's a little bit like that, like AP American Government and Politics, AP American Government. Ari Worthman versus Ari Bernard Worthman both make it clear who I am. AP American Government versus AP American Government and Politics versus AP AmeriGov also makes it very clear what you're learning.
Thank you.
Great. And I'll add into the advice that the other panelists have given. Don't be afraid to reach out to admissions offices directly. As I think we've said a couple times on this panel, each institution reviews applications differently. We consider different pieces. So don't be afraid to reach out to your admissions contact at the institutions that you plan to apply to. This is what we do for a living. We do this because we want to help students in such a crucial time. So don't hesitate to reach out and ask questions. We're here to help. And silver lining of working remotely for the last year, we have a lot more virtual programming that you can attend from the comfort of your home. So engage with us. Don't be afraid to ask questions. We're here to help, and we want to make this process as enjoyable as possible for you, your family, your high school counselors, and for our staff as well. So don't hesitate to contact us.
Thank you. Tom?
I'll just kind of, I love these because I learn so much and I get to, be with my colleagues here. But I guess I'll just close the advice session by saying, I'm sorry about how stressful this process is for you and your families. I wish it wasn't like that. And to the extent that we can be helpful in this process to try to reduce the anxiety and the stress, please lean on us and use us. It's not our intention, but I think there's a lot of information and there's a lot of misinformation out there about the college admission process. And hopefully after today, you have a little better sense for the human beings that are sitting behind the desk here trying to help you achieve your goal. We're well aware that we're asking 17 and 18-year-olds to go through this process. What I hope you understand is that I'm not asking you to plan the rest of your life. There's a lot of stress around the major and will I get in and this and that. I would ask you and encourage you to be authentic. I mentioned this earlier, but I think that if you're true to yourself and you follow the course selection process in your senior year of high school, and throughout high school for that matter, and you pursue those things that you're passionate and you love through the college process, that things are going to work out the way that they're supposed to. My wife and I are great examples of how your college major doesn't necessarily result in a career in that particular area. I was a business major, and I work in education, and my wife was a history major, and she's got a top secret clearance working in the aerospace industry and loves what she does. So I just want to leave you with that this is not a lifetime decision. This is the next step in your academic journey, and we're all here. We love working with you to try to figure out how to get there.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks to all of you. Great information. I'm sure that the students and families and others who joined us got a lot out of your words of wisdom today. So thank you. Students, we have one more session left. So next week, same time on Wednesday, we will be talking about testing. So I hope you'll join us one more time to have some information that will be all about testing. So panelists, thank you. Students, thank you. And I hope everyone has a great week.